Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a little bit since I put out a video. I've been busy with finals that week after the draft and then also kind of taking a little bit of a break, kind of decompress. Also had a couple of weddings going to. So now we're back. Going to be talking about the NFL schedules that were released. So starting off, we're going to go with the four of the NFC South teams, going by where they finished last year in the standings. So first off, we're going to talk about the Buccaneers. Now, the Buccaneers had that curated for the crew schedule release video. I actually really like that video. I like when teams like kind of show like their personality, especially like for like their city. So showing like the different artists, like paintings and stuff like that. Like I really like that. Also, kind of got you motivated for the season. Like hearing from a lot of the Buccaneers legends. Obviously, I'm a Panthers fan, but I still respect the Buccaneers. So I really like that. Also like the way they kind of integrated showing the actual games because some schedule releases videos did a very poor job of showing the actual games, the actual what your purpose is. But I like where they use the brochures, use the tickets, stuff like that. I really like that. So probably one of my favorite schedule releases of the division. But let's get into the actual schedule. So starting off, the go versus the Commanders at home. I think that's going to be a very good starting off point for the Buccaneers. Then you got to go at the Lions. The Lions are going to be a very tough team this year. Then it's versus the Broncos, so going against Sean Payton. And then now we're going to go into a very tough stretch over these from week 4 all the way to week 10. Like either division or top of the conference level competition. So you got versus the Eagles. You got at Falcons, which is a Thursday night game. You got at Saints. Then you got versus the Ravens, a Monday night football game versus the Falcons, at the Chiefs for a Monday night football game, versus the 49ers, and then you have your bye. So thankfully you have a bye after that stretch because like literally Eagles, Ravens, Chiefs, 49ers, all those are supposed to be your top contenders in the conference. Like I'm just saying that's a very tough stretch for the Buccaneers mixed in with the Saints and the Falcons. Just try to like make sure you kind of stay within the division race because I think the division is going to be very tight. I don't think it's going to be like one team's going to be winning it by like week 16 or something like that. It's going to come until like last week. But that bye comes at a really good time, so you're able to rest up. But then again, the Buccaneers schedule is by far the hardest. Obviously, because they won the division last year, it's going to be harder. But it is really hard the way that they kind of placed out a lot of the games. That back half of the schedule too, because even though the opponents aren't as hard as they were in that week 4 to week 10 stretch, you still have 4 out of 5 away games. So starting off in week 12, you're at the Giants, at the Panthers, versus the Raiders, at the Chargers, and then at the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. So that's a pretty tough stretch. Like obviously the first 2 games is Giants Panthers. You should win if you're Buccaneers, especially if you're trying to compete for the division. But at the same exact time, it's still coming off of a bye, going into 4 or 5 away games. It's going to be kind of hard stretch. But then you end the season going versus the Panthers and versus the Saints. So back-to-back division games to kind of like seal who's going to win the division for all of NFC South. I really like that. So a very tough schedule. I won't go into just yet my full predictions for the teams until in August is when I usually I did last year too. Some of those takes did not look good. Some of the takes actually worked out pretty well. So I'm cool with what I with some of the predictions that I had. So hopefully I do a little bit better this year though. So next one is the Saints. Now out of the schedule release videos for the Vision, the Saints were the worst one for me. And I'll talk about the Panthers ones. Like there was actually kind of 3 of them isk. Uh, but the one that the Saints did with the intern interview, like the Packers one did was a lot better kind of format. No, it was technically a pep rally, but like as far as like integrating like fans, integrating like content creators, integrating like players, like that was a lot better than what the Saints did, and they did like with players as like the people who were doing the interviews, like that kind of stuff. Like it was a lot better done that way than it was the Saints. And then you just at the end like, oh well, we're doing AI just throw it out there like haha funny AI joke, and it wasn't done the best. So I'll probably say the Saints schedule release is probably the worst of the division. You might not agree, you might not like the Panthers. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but to me, I didn't like the way that it was done. Anyways, going to the actual schedule. So week one, you're against the Panthers. So, you know, hopefully you'll win that one. Hope you don't, but for your sake, because from week 2 to week 6, you got a pretty tough schedule as well, like pretty tough stretch. You got at the Cowboys, you got versus the Eagles, you got at the Falcons, you got at the Chiefs for Monday Night Football, and then you got versus the Buccaneers. So in that stretch from week 1 to week 6, you need to try to be about 3-3, because if you get through there with 3-3, then you're looking pretty good, because the rest of your schedule is still doable. You have some hard games within there, but that's a tough stretch to start the season. So you might be starting on the back end, and then you really need to try to win those games going into December to kind of finish off strong in January. But going to week 7, you're versus the Broncos Thursday night football game against Sean Payton. So that should be a very fun game to watch. I'm going to be streaming that one, obviously. I'll be streaming Thursday night football games, and then I should still be streaming Monday night football games. Definitely I'm going to try to keep that up next year. Then week 8 at Chargers. By this time, I'm thinking that the Chargers will kind of have their team chemistry, because they're going to be kind of like an interesting team, seeing how John Harbaugh takes over. Jim Harbaugh, takes over. So it'd be interesting to see, but I think by that time, the Chargers are going to be a very interesting team to watch. Then you're at the Panthers, week 9. Then week 10 versus the Falcons. Week 11 versus the Browns. And then you have a bye. So the NFC South has buys either week 11 or week 12, which is really good for us. I mean, obviously, kind of want that later-ish kind of bye to kind of get that home stretch going into December. Then week 13, you're versus the Rams. Week 14, you're at the Giants. Week 15, you're versus the Commanders. Week 16, very hard, at Packers, Monday Night Football game. That should be very interesting. Then versus the Raiders, and then at the Buccaneers. So technically, I forgot that you don't finish off with the Raiders. I forgot you finish off with the Raiders in week 17, so it's not back-to-back division games. But still, that first tough stretch is going to be really where you need to make sure you stay about 500. You can be 2-4, but you really kind of want to be 3-3, just so that you can make sure that, like, you're not forced to win a lot of these games, because once you get kind of in a hole, it's kind of hard to come back. But that's the Saints schedule. Now we go on to the Atlanta Falcons. Now, the Atlanta Falcons, I like the NFL Streets style video. I never really played NFL Streets, but I still like the concept. Also, great dig at the Panthers and also at the Raiders. I like both those, the little digs that you had for them. Going off of the Falcons' schedule, you have a very tough schedule, just like the Buccaneers do. So from week 1 to week 7, you kind of need to be 4-3. But I'm going to go over right now what you have to do. Start off your versus the Steelers. You get to bring Arthur Smith back, and hopefully you humiliate them. I'm going to be at that game, actually, because my sister is a Steelers fan. I'm taking her to her first NFL game. So I'm really excited about that. Week 2 at the Eagles, Monday Night Football game. Very tough, very tough for y'all. Then you go in versus the Chiefs, a Sunday Night Football game. Then it's versus the Saints, so NFC division. Then it's versus the Bucks for a Thursday Night Football game. Then it's at Panthers, and then versus Seahawks. I don't really know what the Seahawks are going to be. The Seahawks are very up in the air. They're the team that I don't really know how to pinpoint just yet, because I'm so conflicted with how their new head coach McDonald's going to be. I'm really confused on. I think their defense is going to be pretty good, but how's their offense going to be? I don't know. That's why I'm kind of conflicted right now on how am I thinking the Seahawks going to be. But that first 7 weeks, you kind of need to be around that 4-3 level, because your back half of the schedule is very, very laden with away games. So week 8, you're at the Buccaneers, and then week 9, you're versus the Cowboys, which is another hard game. But from week 10 on, you have 5 of 8 away games. That is wild. I don't know why they did that to y'all, but you're week 10 at the Saints, week 11 at the Broncos. Then you have a bye, which is good, thankfully. Then you're home against the Chargers, and then it's at Vikings, at Raiders Monday Night Football game, versus Giants, at Commanders, and then you finish off against the Panthers at home. So it's not I don't think it's as hard as the Buccaneers schedule, but it's still a really hard schedule that you need to that first half of the season you need to be around either around 500 or a little bit above 500, because even though maybe your opponents aren't really that hard, it's still away games, and away games are going to be hard to win, especially going into December and January, when like these games are going to be very, very important for those teams as well, who might be competing for the division, might be competing for a wild card spot. So you have a very difficult schedule as well. So now we get on to the Panthers. So the actual schedule release with the painting, the teammates, I liked seeing the good team chemistry. Like I like the idea of it, and it was interesting to see. But there were some questions I had about that. One of them was some of the pairs make sense because it was like position groups, or it was like veteran wide receiver, veteran QB like Andy Dalton versus and Adam Thielen or stuff like that. But like, why'd you have Josie Jewell with Austin Corbett? I didn't get that one. I was like, two opposite eyes of the ball. Like, why didn't you have Austin Corbett with like Damian Lewis? Because you had Robert Hunt with Taylor Moton. So I don't know. I mean, that was just one of the things I was thinking about when I was watching it. I was like, that one I didn't quite understand. But I mean, I still like seeing the chemistry. I like seeing the Derek Brown and Bryce behind the scenes. That was kind of fun to kind of see like their reactions to like the schedule release. Like Bryce, when it had week 5 versus the Bears, he's like, all right. I was like, okay, yeah, he's ready to kind of show like last year what happened in the Bears game. He was really mad at what happened, and then now he's proven himself as well. I really like too. My favorite one was because it's the 30th year of Panthers football. They did a season highlight as far as like the schedule release, like for each game, and I really like that one. That one I would say is my schedule release video that I would say is claim as like this is what we want to push is like our schedule release, because also showing like through the years, like a lot of the highlights like going into the schedule. So going into the schedule, it's not that hard until we have like kind of like a hard back half of the schedule. So hopefully we will be somewhat in the mix by our bye, so that we can have actually important December, January football. I want to get back to that. As long as we're competitive going into that back half of the season, then I'm satisfied with the season, because it's going to show growth as well as a team, as well as Bryce. So week 1, we're at the Saints. Week 2, home against the Chargers. Week 3 at the Raiders. Week 4 versus the Bengals, going to be a hard one. Week 5 at the Bears. Week 6 versus the Falcons. Week 7 at the Commanders. Week 8 at the Broncos. Week 9 versus the Saints, and then Week 10 versus the Giants in Germany. So that first 10 weeks, like you have some hard games in between, but it's not terrible. Like, there is a chance we could be 500 by that point. I don't think we will, but it sure would be nice to be close to 500 around that time, because you can still some games. I think we'll be better than we were last year, obviously. But going into that week 11 bye, very beneficial, especially coming from that Germany game, so you can kind of rest, and then coming into a very tough stretch starting week 12. Week 12 versus the Chiefs. Week 13 versus the Bucks. Week 14 at the Eagles. Week 15 versus the Cowboys. So you got three of probably the top competitors in each division, and then you got versus the Bucks in a very crucial division game. So a very tough stretch in those 4 weeks, and then we end the season with versus the Cardinals, and then back-to-back away games, division games at the Bucks and at the Falcons. So um, I think that this is a pretty good schedule as far as like how things are kind of like laid out, especially considering that you have like the Bucks schedule, which is really bad, and the Falcons schedule, which is like very poorly timed as well as like how it's broken out. Um, so I think there's a chance to have a pretty decent season. Am I expecting to win the division? Probably not, but do I think we could be in the mix by December? Absolutely, because of the way that the schedule is laid out. So that's going to be the schedule breakdown. I am going to be having a. I've been working this past week on a script for a bigger project that I have. I'm going to be releasing by the end of May. I'm really excited about that one. And then in June, have a project, and then for each Sunday, and then July, I have a project for each Sunday as well. So I have projects that I'm putting in place, writing the scripts out for. I think you're going to be really happy for those. Sorry for not uploading in what is it, about two well, a little bit more than 2 weeks. But we'll get back to your regularly scheduled release videos. So thank you for watching, and also another side note before I forget. We also will still be continue to do the podcast NFL Gridiron Gurus. Well, just Gridiron Gurus. Sorry. We're talking about NFL content, and basically we're going to be breaking down each division, how their offseason has gone so far, and then kind of give like a rough prediction, not go really in depth as far as like how we give like almost like a scale of like what we think their record is going to be based on how their offseason has gone, and also like their schedule. So already did the AFC South, that one is already up. Next is going to be NFC South. That should be coming out pretty soon within the next couple of days. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.